Hey gamers, and welcome to 2025's first Life as an Autistic Person podcast. This is episode number 12, titled Autism versus ADHD, and I just want to talk about the differences and similarities that both of these two diagnoses have, because there's a lot of overlap, but also I think it's an interesting discussion to have because I see a lot of people say how they think they should combine both diagnoses into one singular thing, and I don't really think that's the case. So yeah, let's just get right into it, shall we? I'm going to be going over some of the research I've done and also looking at one article in particular, along with other people's opinions on like Reddit, for example, on what they think about autism versus ADHD, So starting things off here, we actually got a poll I did myself on my YouTube channel. It has 20 votes, which isn't a lot, but I'm a small channel, so it's good results either way. But I did a poll 21 hours ago as of me recording this video, asking if you have autism, ADHD, both or neither, because I was really curious on what was the percentage of my audience. And actually autism was the least voted on at 15%. ADHD and both for in second place 20%, and then the highest one was 45%. Now I just wanted to bring up this poll because, one, I was preparing for this video. I had an idea for this video for like a few days now, and technically a while longer, because I always found a fascination to do the topic of autism versus ADHD for like a while, because again, there's so many similarities, but there's also crucial differences. But from the research I did, which was a bit from different articles, basically it seems like ADHD is the more common out of the two, and after that, having both autism and ADHD is like the second most common. Having autism by itself seems to be the less common thing, and then of course the most common thing is not having anything, which is why this poll kind of reflects it. I know it's only like 20 people that voted for it, but still it's a valuable information, and this does kind of line up with the research I did, because the reason why ADHD is diagnosed more from what I see is just because of the fact that it's researched far more. It's been known about for a while. Doctors have looked into this for a while. Autism is still a relatively new thing. I believe in like 2013, that was like when it was added officially to the diagnosis thing. I forgot what it was, but like the thing that you get diagnosed for. Like I don't know, I think it was around that time, so still fairly recent, only like 12 years ago. So yeah, and compared to ADHD, which has far more research into it, autism is still needs a bit more research. So yeah, that's just interesting to consider. So yeah, but now let me go on to this article here. I'm gonna try not to read this, line by line. I did this in the last podcast episode, which I don't know if you guys liked it or not, but I think it's, I think I should try to be less, reading it exactly how the article is laid out, because I mean that's plagiarism, right? No, but like, I want to put on my own words for it. But before we get into it, I do just want to bring up the topic about, autism and ADHD. What are the similarities? This article is going to talk about some similarities, but I want to do a quick thing where I talk about, from what I've done, like the research I've done, the quick similarities, the quick differences. Well, obviously ADHD is a thing where attention deficit disorder, where basically the most common thing is you don't pay attention that much, but it doesn't mean like, lots of kids, that you see like, oh, that kid maybe has ADHD because they're all hyper or they don't pay attention. That might not be the case, but if they persist throughout like a while, then maybe you consider it. There's other factors for ADHD, but that's like the main thing, not paying attention well. There's also a memory loss thing where you kind of forget things very easily. While with autism, I cover autism a lot on this channel. The main thing that hooks it all together is basically the social skills stuff, where you don't know how to communicate with others. There's also stuff like over overstimulation, which kind of affects ADHD as well, but I think it's more so with autism. Where you see bright colors and it could be overwhelming for someone that's autistic like myself. Bright or loud sounds, I mean. But like, from what I've already said, there's already some overlap. Like there's some sensitive like thing, overstimulation kind of sort of in both. But overall those are the two main hooks that are different across the board. Autism is the social skills stuff, and then ADHD is the attention stuff. So yeah, those are the overall differences. As a baseline. But I do want to go over this article that talks about all the stuff. So before we talk about the differences, similarities, let's do a quick overview on more in detail on what autism and ADHD is. And I'm going to be looking at this article here. So persistent challenges. So autism, this is the main thing. Persistent challenges in social interaction, communication, repetitive behavior patterns characterize autism spectrum disorder. Individuals with autism may exhibit difficulties in social norms, such as maintaining eye contact, understanding nonverbal cues, and engaging with others' emotions. Additionally, they often display a presence for routines alongside narrow interests. So another challenge that many on the spectrum deal with is sensory issues, loud sounds, bright lights, unfamiliar spaces. Strangers can all lead to sensory overload and cause intense tantrums. I don't know if I would use that word, but meltdowns, stuff like that. Autism is typically diagnosed in early childhood and can vary widely in severity, hence the term spectrum, and has no cure, but the challenges that arise can be helped through therapy. And then it talks about behavioral therapy, which I do not recommend. This article, I think, is good, like, for a general outcome, but some of the things they already talk about here, and I think something where they talk about later on, I don't know if I agree with, like, I don't know. I don't think you should put your kids in behavioral therapy, but that's just me. But I think this is still a good source for information. So anyway, ADHD, that's attention deficit hypersensitivity disorder, characterized by symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity that significantly impact daily functioning. Individuals with ADHD often struggle to focus, organize tasks, and follow instructions. Hyperactivity may manifest as excessive restlessness, fidgeting, or difficulty engaging in quiet activities. Impulsivity, on the other hand, can lead to hasty decision making and problems making imminent responses. ADHD is common diagnosed during childhood and may persist into adulthood, albeit with varying symptom presentation. So now it's going to talk about the shared symptoms. Although I do want to say, maybe this article mentions it earlier, but I did see at least something in another article where it seems like ADHD is diagnosed more common across a lot of ages. Autism seems to be the most thing that's like diagnosed at a young age, which kind of makes sense because a lot, again, from the bit of research I did, which they might talk about here, but it seems like a lot of ADHD symptoms are kind of persistent in many children, and it's kind of hard to tell if they have ADHD until like they're a little bit older. While with autism, you can kind of see it early on for kids, for the most part. Now, of course, there's cases where adults or teenagers get diagnosed, aka me. I was diagnosed at 16 for autism, although the signs were clearly there that I was very young and I was clearly autistic, but my mom had no idea that it was a thing. But that seems to be the common thing. ADHD seems to be diagnosed more so across the board, while autism is more so younger, but again, there could be varying degrees. So okay, next up, the shared symptoms and overlapping features of both these things. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So this article says how around 20 to 50% of kids with ADHD meet the diagnosis criteria for autism. This is like why in my poll I did, a lot of people, like the second, tied with second place was both, along with ADHD. Conversely, 30 to 80% of children on the spectrum also meet the criteria for ADHD. These statistics mean that the two conditions are co-occurring with several overlapping symptoms, such as, and then it goes on. So yeah, that's a staggering amount. I probably butchered that word, but it's a staggering amount of people that are autistic that can have ADHD. Why is this the case? Well, again, from my understanding, autism is well less research compared to ADHD, which has far more backing by the science community and stuff like that. And also, I did see something where it was like somewhat recent where you can now get diagnosed for both. Before, you could only be diagnosed for one thing, ADHD or autism, and sometimes people would get re-diagnosed for something else, like they were diagnosed for ADHD and then they found out, oh, I actually have autism. Sometimes they were diagnosed with both, but for the most part you can only have one diagnosis until somewhat more recently. And it was just, ADHD is far more scientifically research. So yeah, okay, but anyway, going over the shared symptoms and overlapping features. The first one is impaired social skills, difficulties in social interactions, including challenges in understanding social cues and maintaining appropriate relationships, are observed in both autism and ADHD. However, the underlying mechanisms and specific manifestations may differ, which I believe this article will talk about later on. But so I'll just read the rest of this and then we can talk more in depth. But in attention and distractibility, attention differentiates difficulties are a hallmark feature of ADHD. However, individuals with autism may also struggle with maintaining attention, particularly in situations not aligned with their restricted interests or intense focus, which is very true. Many special interests are available for autistic people. Like myself, it's games and technically autism in itself, and I can focus on things that aren't related to that, but it's still a bit hard for me. So yeah. So there's an attention and distractibility, hyperactivity, and restlessness is the next one. While hyperactivity is a defining characteristic of ADHD, it can also be observed in autism, although the manifestation may differ. Individuals with ADHD and autism exhibit stimming, a form of a self-stimulation that includes repetitive movements such as hand clapping, rocking, humming, and packing. Executive functioning challenges. ADHD and autism involve difficulties with executive functioning, which are cognitive abilities that allow us to plan, organize, prioritize, sustain. Okay, probably butchered that again. Manage time, regulate emotions, and engage in problem solving and decision making. These higher order cognitive processes may play a crucial role in goal-directed behavior and self-regulation. For example, someone with autism or ADHD may forget to brush their teeth or not consider it essential. Raise your hand. Have you done this? I've done this. My mom keeps telling me I need to brush my teeth every day. I try. I really try. But man, it's so hard. But yeah. The next thing talks about differentiating features, but overall, you can see that, autism, ADHD, they do have a lot of similarities, at least on the surface level. And this is kind of something I want to bring up a little bit more later, but I do want to touch on it now, where, I talked about how there's a lot of people that are like, oh, they should just be combined into one, autism and ADHD into one diagnosis, and I don't think that's the right call, especially because that's not considering the fact that there are people diagnosed with both. And from the research I've done with the people that have both, it's like a battle in their minds, what is going on, because it's like two different perspectives of things. And if someone, if they really were basically the same thing, why would someone that has ADHD and autism be having that mental battle in their minds? Why would someone do that? They would just be like the same as normal autistic or ADHD diagnosis people. So I think it's not considering the fact that people that have both, just because the overall similarities seem like the same, the differentiating factors are different. They are different. Like when you go in depth, they are different on what causes the overall similar or even like the same diagnosis, if I'm making sense. I hope I am. Basically, if you dive deeper into the similarities, you'll find that they are different. I hope that makes more sense than I said originally. So, okay. Differentiating features. Despite the overlap, there are distinct features that can help differentiate between autism and ADHD. These differences are crucial for accurate diagnosis and appropriate intervention strategies. Key differentiating features include social communication and interaction. Difficulties in social reciprocity are more central to autism. I probably said that word wrong. I'd say a lot of words wrong. I apologize. But anyway, while individuals with ADHD may exhibit impaired social skills, these challenges are typically secondary to attention and executive function rather than core defects at the at the severe end of the autism spectrum. I'm sorry. Kids may be entirely nonverbal, which is the case was the case for me. Obviously, I'm talking a lot. I have a YouTube channel. It'll be kind of hard to have a YouTube channel, although possible, if you did not speak. But, I'm talking a lot here. But I was nonverbal for a while. I think it's partly due to my dad passing away. But still, I did not really talk to many people for many years until like fourth grade. I lost my dad in kindergarten, and I didn't really talk to anyone for like 4 years. Then fourth grade, I kind of started to talking to people a little bit. Fifth grade, I started a little bit more, and in middle school, it got better. But yeah. It was very hard, but that's a nonverbal thing, and that really doesn't apply to ADHD. They don't really have the same difficulties with the social cues or obviously, or the social interaction with random people. They're more so fine with that. In fact, I would argue that a couple of them are good at making friends. They just kind of struggle with the work stuff when it comes to like school thing. So there's that. Next up, restricted interest and repetitive behaviors. So restricted and repetitive behaviors are a core feature of autism, whereby they are not a defining characteristic of ADHD. These behaviors can manifest as intense per occupation with specific topics, routine adherence, or sensory sensitivities. Individual with ADHD may jump back and forth from various topics during conversation or daily activities, which is very important. This is one of the very key differences in that autism, we kind of like to stay, many of us at least, many autistic people like to stay within our comfort zone. We don't like to change things up that much, or if we do, we want to be slow and steady. Well, with ADHD, they're constantly about, changing things up, doing things like crazy, maybe not like, oh, they're, doing like a extreme bike race, and then they want to blow up a car. You know what I mean? Like nothing that extreme, but they want to do something where, oh, I want to play my video game for like 30 minutes, and then now I want to go bike riding, something small like that. Of course it could depend on the ADHD person as well, but that's what I'm trying to get across. Next up, we got cognitive profile. Individuals with autism often demonstrate unique cognitive profiles, including exceptional attention to detail, visual spectral skills, and pattern recognition. This is where the concept of savants come from. Individuals on the spectrum who exhibit extraordinary abilities. In contrast, individuals with ADHD show more generalized cognitive difficulties, properly in synchronized attention and working memory. So basically, again, this is not the case for every autistic person, but it seems like most of us do have at least some extent of a higher cognitive view on things, either by memorizing faces, memorizing names, memorizing something in detail, like you remember your family member telling you something. It seems like many of us has something, like that. There's some people that are savants, that are, autism savant syndrome or whatever, which is like a variant. Although I think it can also happen for non-autistic people, but usually it's more common for autistic people. Anyway, the people that have this subsequent autism thing, or like across the board, like have the same thing where they are good at details of like these things, they're good at faces or whatever. Well, with ADHD, it's not really the case. You don't really see that. In fact, they struggle more so in terms of at least memory. But overall, they're pretty average. So next up, treatment. Although various behavior interventions exist in treating ADHD, a prevalent method involves medication. Medical professionals prescribe substances like, okay, I don't know how to read that, but medicine to manage the ADHD symptoms of attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. These medications target neurotransmitter imbalances, primarily involving dopamine and neurodopamine. I don't know, probably butchered that other one. The same is not true for autism. Although medication may address co-occurring conditions, it is not a primary therapy. And then behavior interventions like ABA therapy are far more common and effective for managing the challenging symptoms of autism, which is technically true, but also I don't think it's safe. But anyway, the point is that, medicine is like, there's an actual medicine for ADHD. There's nothing like that for autism. There's stuff that can help you, like, like autism is also, many people that have it have like depression or anxiety, and there are medicine for that. I take medicine for like anxiety and also for sleep, which is kind of something else that also relates to autism. But nothing specific that relates to autism, at least as of right now. Maybe one day, but overall, it's just ADHD that has the specific thing honing in. Next up, we got scientific reasons for the overlap. The reasons behind the overlap between ADHD and autism are under exploration. Multiple factors, including genetic, neutral, and environmental influences, likely interact to contribute to the co-occurrence and shared features observed in these conditions. While definitive answers remain elusive, researchers have proposed several hypotheses. So again, nothing confirmed, because really, again, ADHD is the more common one, more research. Autism is still relatively new, and them together is like really new. So it's probably going to be a while until we get something about the reasons why they can coexist, or why they're common to be paired together, like diagnosed together. So the first theory is shared genetic factors. ADHD and autism have a significant genetic component. Both disorders have associated with several genes involved in brain development, neurotransmitter regulation, and sympathetic connectivity. Some of these genes include those related to dopamine signaling and synaptic adhesion molecules. Persistence of overlapping genetic risk factors suggest that shared genetic vulnerabilities may contribute to the shared symptoms of co-occurrence. So basically, the TLDR is that they do share some genes together. Although I did see one research thing where there were some, like, even though there are some genes, obviously, like this article says here, that are shared across the board, there's also some genes that are not, especially with ADHD. Especially like when someone is diagnosed with both, you can like tell in like the genes or some. I did see something about that, but there's at least some genetic overlap, and I do think this makes sense. There's a lot of families that do have both. In fact, I suspect, again, not confirmed, I shouldn't even put this out there, but I suspect my brother has ADHD. And there's also, it might not, I don't know if it's going to be mentioned here, but one of the potential causes for ADHD is like being like a premature baby, and my brother was a premature baby. While autism, there's like other causes, like having an older parent, which I had an older dad, so just like a kind of shared genetic thing. But I maybe I shouldn't put that out there, but that's just a thing to consider. Anyway, the next thing is neural connectivity and brain structure. Studies using brain imaging techniques like MRIs have revealed differences in neural connectivity and brain structure in individuals with ADHD and autism. For example, both conditions have shown altered connectivity within and between brain regions involved in social cognition, attention, and executive functions. Specific differences in the structure and functioning of areas such as the prefrontal cortex, other cortex. These neutral differences should align to shared and unique symptoms. Neurotransmitter imbalances, such as dopamine and serotonin. I'm just like skimming through this because this is a whole bunch of technical mumbo jumbo that I am kind of interested in, but I'm sure many of you guys aren't. Imbalances in serotonin are associated with impulsivity, developmental, stretch, whatever. I butchered that word. I don't know how to read a couple words. I'm sorry. Another potential reason for the overlap is their developmental stuff. Early childhood is a crucial period for brain development. And then attention may lead to impairments and social communication. So, and then that's basically the end of the article. So overall, there are a couple, a lot of similarities really, but there's also a key amount of differences, especially when you look deeper into the similarities, quote unquote, because you can actually find that they are different when looking at them in a deeper path. At least in my opinion, from the bit of research I've done, maybe both struggle to some extent with remaining still, because there's like stemming on both. But autism may be different than ADHD. ADHD people may be doing it because they want to do something with their hands. They want to, they're bored. Autism people may do it because I don't know, it's a habit, and they've been doing that for a while. It could be different but the same, if that makes sense. So I'm looking at this other article now because that last article did not talk about it. And I kind of brought this up about causes of ADHD versus autism. According to this article, researchers are still in the process of figuring out what causes autism and ADHD. There is no doubt that both ADHD and autism are inheritable, meaning that they can run in families. Very true. That means there's a genetic component to both disorders. There are also some environmental issues that can lead to autism, ADHD, or both. Researchers are exploring how differences in brain structure and chemistry may cause autism, ADHD, and other developmental disorders. Now, it seems, before we get into this article fully, or like this section fully, autism and ADHD are both something you're born with, from what I can tell, especially autism. ADHD, I believe is the case as well, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm like 95% sure. Of course, they're diagnosed at different times, some younger, some older, maybe the environment of your, how you're treated in the world contributes to some extent on how you develop that autism or ADHD diagnosis in the future. But overall, it is something you're born with, it just maybe it kind of enhances, certain factors according to the environment or stuff like that. I don't know. But anyway, causes of ADHD. Besides genetics, risk factors for ADHD include brain injury, exposure to environmental risks such as lead in paint by a parent during pregnancy or in person at a young age, alcohol and tobacco use by a parent during pregnancy, premature delivery, which is what I mentioned about my brother, and low birth weight. So again, these are, I think most of these are, except the brain injury one, I don't know how that would work, but most of these are due to the woman that's housing the baby, obviously, doing something in the outside world, causing the baby to end up like that. Not to say that that's bad, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that these are the causes, potential causes of it. And these have really nothing except the brain injury one. I'm not sure about that one, but most of these are caused before the baby is born, so obviously it happens before birth, the determination if you have ADHD, and as we'll soon see, autism. But anyway, causes of autism. All the risk factors of ADHD except brain injury are also risk factors for autism. In addition, although I think the thing, especially like premature delivery, I think that's less common for autism. Alcohol and tobacco, I think, are less like that too. But I think the exposure to environmental risks can lead to autism. Anyway, I am rambling too much. In addition, autism may be caused by specific genetic developmental disorders such as fatigue X syndrome. The disorder is also more likely to develop in a baby born to older parents, which is the case for me with my dad. He was 23 years older than my mom, and my mom had me in like what, 30 something, 33 or whatever. So relatively older age still for my mom. Anyway, the use of certain anti-seizure drugs during pregnancy may contribute to the development of autism. Valproic acid is known as pterogen, I don't know, a substance that causes birth defects and can result in abnormal brain development. Exposure during the first trimester puts the child at the greatest risk of developing autism. There are many misconceptions about other causes of autism. Vaccines, for example, are one of the things that don't cause autism. So, yeah, and then I guess we could talk about this one, diagnosis of ADHD versus autism, because this does kind of relate to it. There are no medical tests for either ADHD or autism. Diagnosis for both relies on observation, interviews, and assessment of development and behavior. Prior to making an autism or ADHD diagnosis, practitioners conduct tests and ask questions to rule out other possible contributors to attention issues such as anxiety or learning disability. Evaluation for autism or ADHD is often conducted by a team of specialists, including developmental practitioners, child psychologists, and or psychiatrists, neuropsychologists, speech language pathologists, and occupational therapists. I butchered a lot of those names. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Man, I suck. Okay. At the evaluation specialists use a variety of different tests to determine the person's intelligence quota, IQ, speech and language skills, and behaviors. So, in children, in most cases, autism and ADHD are diagnosed in young children. A healthcare provider or practitioner starts the process by asking a series of questions about the child's development and behavior. If the screening suggests further testing is necessary, the practitioner, I'm probably saying that wrong or whatever, will recommend a full evaluation. Specialist may also ask parents a number of questions about their child's development. They may have parents fill out questionnaires and their child's behavior, growth, and medical history, and more. They may also wish to speak with teachers and other caregivers to help with the diagnosis. And then there's also something where can autism be misdiagnosed as ADHD? Yes, because there are overlapping factors. Anyway, in adults, both adults and ADHD, particularly when mild, may be diagnosed in adults. Usually the diagnosis comes from a psychologist or psychiatrist, although it may also come from a general practitioner. And then this one talks about treatments for autism, which we kind of talked about, treatments for ADHD. Although this one also mentions speech therapy, which I did have speech therapy, though this was before I found out I was autistic. It was just because I can't speak properly, and I still can't, as you can clearly tell in this episode. So, yeah, I think that's it for the articles we can look at. Now, I want to look at some people's, I guess, testimonies, basically. I want to hear what people are saying on, like, Reddit, for example, especially about the thing I mentioned earlier about if it should be diagnosed, like, under one umbrella, you know? But we'll look at this one. This Reddit thing which talks about similarities and differences as well. So here's the thing. So this is another thing I actually did not I kind of forgot to bring up. You know, we kind of glossed over, which was about the social cues stuff, which can technically both happen for autism and ADHD people. And this person on Reddit here on this article says that the difference between the way social cues get messed up is very interesting because apparently this person has ADHD, or I think they have ADHD with autism. But anyway, either way, people with ADHD, or at least have it along with autism, may not catch social cues because they weren't paying attention to them, you know? But the ones they catch, you have to don't know what they mean. So yeah, this person does have ADHD along with autism. So that's like a thing I forgot to mention, you know? They may not struggle, but they might not catch social cues from, you know, neurotypical people, ADHD people, because they're not paying attention, you know, to the person. They're distracted or whatever. So that's an interesting thing I did not consider, actually. So yeah. And this is another thing I kind of did not bring up is when, well, I kind of did, but not in detail, was having both, having autism and ADHD, where a lot of people, again, I kind of talked about this earlier about how a lot of people that have both kind of struggle with it because, they can never relate, like this person right here, they can never fully relate to descriptions of pure ADHD or pure autistic people, and even when they try to find experiences of other autistic ADHD people, there's like, just like autism and also ADHD in general, I presume, I don't know for sure, but everyone's experience with these things is different, but especially that's the case for people that have autism and ADHD because these symptoms can like overlap to like way more varying degrees. You say, how lots of autistic people say every autistic person is different. If you met one autistic person, you met one person that has autism. That's like more so the case that people when they have autism and ADHD, because it's like a whole different mixed mass of different things, But now I want to look at the topic about merging these two together. Should it happen? Hint, no, it shouldn't. Here's why. No, but let me go over a Reddit post that kind of talks about if it's a combine. So yeah. So I want to go over some people's points on talking about from this Reddit post talking about I can't be the only one who thinks ADHD and autism are on the same spectrum, and there's a lot of people that agree on this thing, but there's also a lot of people that disagree. So this post, I want to talk about this one where they used to think like this 100%, where they thought ADHD was going to be combined with autism in the future, because they're both heritable and then other stuff they shared. But there's a new genetic study, and then they linked to the article, and I checked it out. This is the one I was referencing earlier, that shows ADHD and autism are distinct genes. So folks with autism and ADHD have a unique genetic profile compared to just autism or ADHD. So that's what I was kind of talking about earlier, how there's kind of some overlap, but overall there are different, and you can see that when people have both. And then autism is not medicatable, though. There are different, the symptoms do overlap significantly. And then, there's a lot of people that have both and say, like this person right here, as someone who has both, I find them different. Yes, the struggles and challenges can be similar from the outside, but the root cause is not. My brain is constantly a fight between what my ADHD wants and my autism. When I take my ADHD meds, I notice my autism traits and quirks are more present, Also, I forgot to completely mention this other thing of autism versus ADHD. I think this was mentioned in another article that I was like doing research on, how, there's, special interest for autism, and there's hyperfixation or whatever, which can be similar on the surface. Hyperfixation is more so for ADHD, and then special interests are for autism. And the difference with that is that hyperfixations are usually happen like, they're very short lasted. Maybe they last like, I don't know, a couple days, a couple weeks, maybe a little bit longer. But with a special interest, that lasts way longer. That can last like years, maybe even your whole lifetime, So they're kind of similar, but, the way they last is different. So I forgot to mention that, Okay, and then this person has another interesting point. I think of it like hardware versus software. So things might look the same on the outside, but come from different places. I don't know. Obviously, there's way more to learn. It's an interesting question for sure. No, they aren't the same thing, but there sure as hell is a lot of overlap. I don't know. I have some friends who have ADHD only, and it's pretty obvious. This is an obvious connection, but I think it's a bit more complex. So basically, what people are saying is that there is a lot of overlap, but they are different from what most people can tell, especially when people have both. It feels like their brains are fighting, Like I saw one meme of people that had both where it was like two wolves, battling it out in their head, So I definitely think that they should not be combined, but you never know, Maybe we'll find something more in the future that they find like, oh, they actually are connected more so than we thought, and maybe they are diagnosed under the same umbrella. I don't think they should, but again, science is an ever evolving process. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple years, in the next like 20 years or whatever. Maybe it will combine, maybe it won't. Maybe we'll find some other causation for why they are so similar, at least the symptoms on a basic level. I don't know. We'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. That's going to be it for me. I'm definitely going to edit out a couple of times where I was just like quiet, where I was just thinking on what to say next. But I had a lot of fun going over the articles I found, the people that I saw on like Reddit, and also the poll I did, talking about the percentage, because I think it's really disgusting to have. If you have ADHD, if you have autism, both or neither, even if you don't have any one of these things, it's just an interesting thing to talk about, because I always find science fascinating too. That's like one of my older special interests that I kind of grew out of, but like I still kind of have it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, play some Xenoblade, and I'll catch you all next time for more. Peace. Bye, everyone.